Hello and welcome to Fantasy Football by Ben. Today, I'll be talking about my Week 12 bold predictions. So every week, I'll be making a new bold prediction: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defense, and then I'll be reflecting on how I did last week on the same bold predictions that I had the week before. They're not the same, obviously, but just as the bold predictions that I had last week. I'll be reviewing how I did last week on my bold predictions, and then I'll be making new bold predictions this week. So last week, I made the bold prediction that Aaron Rodgers would have as good of a week as he had week 1, which was his best fantasy week. He didn't do it. He had a really good game, but it wasn't his best game of the season, which is what I predicted. So Jonathan Taylor was my second bold prediction for my running back prediction. He also had a very good game, and it wasn't his best of the season, but he did have a good game, and they got 6 holding calls on one drive, so basically that just took away whatever he did, and he had a rushing touchdown on that drive, which would have got him over his fantasy points, which is what my bold prediction was, but he didn't do it, so that's alright. So that's 2 wrong. I predicted that DK Metcalf was going to be the top wide receiver, and he wasn't even close. He did score a touchdown, though, and that was good. And then my bold prediction for my tight end prediction was Darren Waller would get past 15 points and be the number 2 scoring tight end this week. He averaged over 10 yards per catch last week, and he was the number 2 scoring tight end, and he did get over 15 points. So that one was right. And my defensive prediction that I made was that the Chiefs' defense would stop the Raiders. They did not stop the Raiders at all. I thought that they would. They didn't force any turnovers until the last drive, and I thought that they would get better pressure and be a top defense, but they weren't. So, all right, now let's get into some of my bold predictions for Week 12. All right. My first bold prediction for this week is that Teddy Bridgewater will be a top 5 scoring QB this week. They play the Vikings, and the Vikings didn't look great last week, and they played against Andy Dalton, who scored 18.7 fantasy points in half PPR, threw for over 200 yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Teddy Bridgewater didn't play last game because of his knee, but I expect him to play this weekend, and I think that he could be a top 5 scoring QB this week. And so I like this bold prediction, and I like Teddy Bridgewater if he throws for touchdowns. I like him this week against the Vikings defense that didn't look great last week. All right, my next bold prediction is that Todd Gurley hasn't had a great running game since week 5, and this week will change that. They go up against the Raiders, who just gave up 3 rushing touchdowns last week, 2 to Clyde Edwards-Helaire and 1 to Le'Veon Bell. That's his name. And Todd Gurley hasn't averaged over 3.25 yards per carry in a game since week 5, and this will be Todd Gurley's week. And my bold prediction is that Todd Gurley will average over 5 yards per carry and get into the end zone twice. And so I think it's interesting because Todd Gurley just hasn't been producing up to the level of rushing as we expected. He is only averaging like 3.4 yards per carry on the year or whatever, and just hasn't looked great. And week 5 was his only 100-yard game this season, so I think he possibly could do that as well this week. So I like my bold prediction of Todd Gurley this week going up against the Raiders. My next bold prediction is that Justin Jefferson, the last 2 weeks, his wide receiver. He'll be a top wide receiver. And so the last 2 weeks, Justin Jefferson has played great. And this week against the Panthers, I expect the same. I mean, the last game last week, the Panthers held the Lions scoreless. And they have a solid defense, but it's a tough matchup for Jefferson, especially if Thielen doesn't play. But I really do think that if Thielen does play, I think this could be a big game for Justin Jefferson because Thielen takes a lot of things away from Justin Jefferson's side, and I think this could be a pretty close game, especially with Teddy Bridgewater going off, And so I think this could be a really big Justin Jefferson game as well. My next bold prediction is that Hunter Henry will be a top 3 tight end this week. They're going up against the Bills, and the Bills are allowing just under 15 fantasy points to tight ends, and which makes them the third worst defense against tight ends. And so I think this could be a really good game for Hunter Henry. They're most likely getting Austin Eckler back this week. And, I mean, Justin Herbert has thrown for 40 pass attempts in every game this year except for 3. And so I expect a really big week from Hunter Henry this week. And he's coming off of a touchdown last week, and he's doing well. And so I think that this could be a really big week for Hunter Henry this week. And I have him, my bold prediction is that he's going to be a top 3 tight end. For my final bold prediction of the week, I do a defensive prediction. And so this week I did the Saints. The last 3 weeks, the Saints have scored 10 plus fantasy points. This week I predict the Saints will reach that mark 4 straight weeks. And they're playing against the Broncos, who looked good last week. Gordon had 2 touchdowns rushing, and Lindsey had no touchdowns, but they both had over 80 yards rushing. And I expect the Saints to be up in this game and get a good pass rush on Drew Lock. And so, I mean, it'll probably force Drew Lock out of the pocket and make some bad throws or force some turnovers or force some sacks. I think this could be a really big week for the Saints defense, so then I have them as my bold prediction, scoring over 10 fantasy points again this week. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're new. Be sure to turn on the bell so you get all the notifications when I post. I'll be posting a video Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I'll be posting 4 videos on Saturday. So stay tuned for those. Peace.